All right, Antoan. So, our final MEL talk, interview for our event this year. I just, on your topic, the professional dream. You started. The first thing you came on and said was the place that you are in is not where you belong. And I think it kind of echoes through all of our speakers who spoke, who were, facing some challenges that they were in. Jessie with her fibroids, Mark with losing his job, Erica with the financial issues that she was going through at some point. Just kind of elaborate on that and just start where that started for you. Where did you see yourself, the place that you were in, and you realized that I'm not going to be here for a long period of time. It's just a part of the journey.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, first and foremost. I don't even know the answer to that question, to be honest. But I think just kind of following that path. I mean, I don't know if I think I'm still kind of understanding it up to this point, so I don't know if I have figured it out as yet. But I think just being aware, I could continue to ask myself that question: Am I where I'm supposed to be? One of the questions yesterday was like, how do you get away from those friends who still want to be on the blocks and stuff like that? And just continue to ask yourself, is this where I'm supposed to be? So I don't have a good answer for that question.
Well, you said that when you were much younger, your ambition was to become a policeman. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason that you wanted to become a policeman was simply because you didn't think of anything better for yourself.
Right.
So I guess talk about that transition period where, you had the mentality of I wanted to become a policeman, and then it was, maybe I can do a lot more, dream a lot bigger for myself.
I got you. And I guess this kind of ties into your PVP, right? And so I think what all I could see was the people around me, and I think what it was to the core is kind of wanting to serve and protect, right? So that was like the mission inside, right. And so and then I was introduced to sports. So I was introduced to sports, and then I started to play these sports. And the crazy part about it is, baseball isn't something that I love. I don't love baseball. Like I love to compete. Get me in any type of competition I'm trying to win. So I was kind of disappointed when we weren't able to be a part of the teams yesterday, right? But I said to say, track and field and football were actually the sports that I love. Right. But I was pushed toward baseball from like my mom and then some other circumstances, and that desire to compete was what kind of propelled me in the sport. And I think you talk about finding your purpose and adding value to it, because like I say, baseball, like even today, I shouldn't say I don't like to watch it, but it's not necessarily the most fun sport to watch. But I think, that was what I was being used through that avenue, right, to kind of fulfill that passion, and it became a passion. Yeah. So I guess maybe you should even talk a little bit about that PVP.
Yeah, I think, and just going off, because Antoan and I were talking yesterday, and we were talking about exactly what he just said, and him, being a professional athlete, you'd think that the sport that you're a professional in would be the one sport that you love and that you love to watch and all of that, but he hates watching baseball. He watched baseball as much as I watch baseball, and I only watch baseball in October because that's when the playoff starts, and the World Series is about to start and all of that. So I think it's kind of ironic that even though your value was in that, you weren't really passionate about it, and I think that ties into what my message on the PVP is about. Because pursuing passion sometimes is the wrong purpose for your life, right? You weren't too passionate about baseball, but you found purpose in it, and it created value for yourself, and you became a professional athlete for, almost 20 years or about 20 years. So it created a path for you to now have a platform to start your foundation and do everything now to expand on your purpose and to really create, I guess, a new purpose. I think baseball allowed you to create the friendships and the networks that you do, because you still work for a major league team. You go around. He travels all the time, working with the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think that. Okay, we got a Toronto Blue Jays 5, only one.
I know, right? But to speak to what you're saying as well, and I think I just kind of thought about it actually. You're talking about the PvP and finding that purpose, adding value to it, and being your passion, and me not necessarily loving baseball. I think it helped me too to not to tie my identity to it as either, and so it didn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like it didn't matter whether I was doing good or bad because I wasn't tied. My identity wasn't tied to that. So I think, just in thinking about it, not having my so if I had a bad game, it wasn't the end of the world, you know what I mean? And so not having your identity tied to kind of what you're doing, it kind of frees you up, to be your best self.
Talk about, I know you said that you went off to high school. You got an invitation to play high school ball in the States, and you weren't the most confident person at that point in your life. You had to work yourself through the lack of confidence and build up your self-confidence, getting comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I guess talk about maybe one or two points that you remember or things that you would use to really get yourself or to build your confidence and get yourself past those uncomfortable situations.
So, well, the one thing that I always would think about was my family. And so it was almost as if I got to this point where I would just tell myself no matter what happens, my family's going to love me. So I used to think to myself, if I got sent back home or if I sucked, at least I know my grandmother was going to love me when I get back home. And so that was my blanket, my security blanket, this whole entire journey. And ironically, so my grandmother passed in 2014. And after she passed, I just remember too, that's when I started to get this strong urge to kind of leave the game as well. But she was she was my security blanket. And then the other thing, I used to always sing this song. So after I have a bad game, I would go, we'd be in the locker room and I would start singing this song, Mama said there'd be days like this. So I just kind of think that would get me through as well.
Yeah. And we were having a conversation yesterday and you were telling me about while you were in high school, there was maybe it was when you transitioned into college, but there was a certain point where you wanted to quit and leave the school that you were at because you were unhappy. And I want you to talk about that a bit because your decision, you made a decision to stay and stick it out, and I think it worked out for you, obviously, because all of us go through moments where we just want to quit, right? We tired of not achieving the goals we set to achieve or accomplishing things that we want to accomplish, or even just simply being successful. We're tired of this journey or this path that we're on and just not getting to where we want to get, and just kind of speak on the mindset that you had in wanting to quit. How did you overcome that to stick it out and to progress in your career?
Yeah, so that story that you're talking about, I think it goes back to the start of the dream not belonging to you and the dream being more important than yourself. And I can tell you this, I don't really understand why I was making those decisions, because even I think about it, it's kind of silly in the sense that I don't know why I wasn't thinking about myself more. But what Chara was talking about, so when I got to this high school I was at 14, in getting there, they had just started a football team, and so I became the running back, and I was really, really good, and so they was excited about it. And when this happened, there was a bigger school in the area, a public school, that my cousin went to, and they were like, man, you gotta come to this school because you're gonna get more exposure. It's just gonna help you, give you this platform to soar. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And so somehow a rumor got around in the high school that I was about to leave. And so when the rumor got around I was about to leave, people started questioning me, are you gonna leave? Are you gonna leave? And during that time, they had contacted my Little League coach back in the Bahamas. And it was it's a rumor that Antoan's about to leave and go to a different school. And so he decided to fly up. They had a meeting without me, and he basically told the principal, hey, if you bring some more Bahamians over, Antoan will stay at your school. And so they negotiated to bring over 5 more Bahamians. I would stay to the school. And so I remember at the time my best friend was one of the guys, and we were talking on the phone, and he was like, man, he's like, yeah, they talking about us coming over. And I remember on the phone, I was like, hey, you want to come? And he's like, yeah, but I don't want you to like have to stay if you don't want to. And I was like, all right, I'll stay. And so once again, like it was, that dream wasn't for me, right? So I was like put in this situation, and I think it was all about how do you clear the pathway, or how do you leave the place in a better place for someone else behind you. And so it was an easy decision, because one, I was getting people to come, which I was longing for, because I was missing home and friends and family. So
and I know as a professional, a lot of us don't really get the insight on the challenges that you face, especially in baseball, but with it being you got the minor leagues and so many levels or divisions in the minor league. Just talk about that entire process, like making it, finally getting drafted, and then having to work your way up to be selected for a professional team and make it to the actual Major League Baseball. Speak about the not so pretty moments, the struggles, the meals that weren't so pleasant, that folks don't know about. Talk about that part of your career.
I guess that's all of it, right? So I guess you're right. They're like, when I think people to think about professional sports, and especially in baseball, we just think about the bright lights in Yankee Stadium. That's what people want to talk about when they talk to me. Like, let's talk about Yankee Stadium. Let's talk about Derek Jeter, but what is missing is, the journey, and like what has formed you into what you are formed. And I talked about it a little bit, how we would stay in these like apartments, these 1-bedroom apartments, and 4 and 5 guys trying to bunk up and figure it out. We would have, like we would get paid, and it would be a little bit of money, and like by the time as you paid your rent, you was trying to figure out how you was going to eat for the rest of the month. And I remember we would laugh because they would feed us like, it would be like moldy bread, and like you might get some turkey, but you definitely get no mayonnaise or nothing else to put on it. You either get you either got peanut butter or you got jelly. You don't ever have both at the same time. And so and I guess the thought of it is like you go through this and you're working towards something, because when you do get that opportunity to play at the highest level, they do really take care of you. I think it's a little absurd what they do, but it's no more, you're getting peanut butter and the jelly this time.
And I think that's great, because Antoan does a lot of mentoring with the younger players, especially the Bahamian players. We have a few Bahamians who are going through the system now. So, he takes time out of his schedule to fly up to the spring training, and you said that you had dinner with a bunch of them, and just to find out how things were going with them, and just kind of really having a heart to heart with them, because you care, because you've been through the process, and you understand that. So just to talk about how your career has now spawned you to start the foundation, to want to mentor young players and show them some of the things that you've learned, maybe some mistakes that you've made, some things that they can do different. To talk about that part of your journey now. Yeah.
So I guess I'll tell you how I kind of got there too. So obviously I'm 5 foot with I'm short, I'm tiny, I don't look like an athlete. And so for me, like I really had to work really, really hard in order to like survive. And that's the way, my mentality was, that I was going to work so hard that my mind would just think I could conquer, and I could, be better than everybody else. And so I used to wake up every single morning without an alarm at about 5 o'clock in the morning to go work out, for 11 years straight. I haven't worked out in like 2 years. Yippee, I'm so happy about that. But I would wake up every morning at 5 o'clock to work out. And then all of a sudden, like 2014, my grandmother passes. I just started to get this sense. And I remember when I first left at 14, I was like, man, how am I going to help Bahamians get these opportunities? I just kept thinking of that. And the vision had changed. But now in 2014, I was waking up, and this thought was placed on me as like, how, like I gotta help and give this information. I was like, the network that I'm creating and the people that I'm connecting with, it all this means nothing if I can't use it to help some more people. And the seed was starting to get planted in me that you got to go back home. And in 2016, I remember, man, like in the off season, I'm working out, I'm going through it, and it was literally like every morning at 4 o'clock, I'd wake up and I'm thinking about how am I going to impact the youth? How am I going to impact the youth? And I would wake up, I was writing in my notebook these little thoughts I was having. And then I remember calling my agent in like November, and I was like, hey, man, I was like, we're not going to take any of the deals that come on the table, just like, you know, but let's keep it quiet. Like, but I'm going to retire. And so literally, man, it was like.
Sorry, wait. So you had deals coming in to play on another major league team?
Yeah, so I had offers to go like for next spring training and
Oh, wow.
I whatnot. And so I was just like, you know what, let's shut it down. Because, you know, when something starts to tug at you, man, and the way I look at it is that I knew in order for me to compete on that level, my passion had to be at high, because one, I'm tiny, you know, I wasn't very good at baseball, so I had to use like all my grit and determination to make it. And if I didn't have that, then I knew I wasn't going to be able to compete at the highest level. And so now when I started to get tugged in this other direction, I was just like, I feel like it was a sign to like, hey, now it's time to come home and kind of give back and use this information and kind of pour it into others. And so that's what kind of led me back home, and that's what kind of led me to kind of want to see how, you know, you could, I guess this is me being selfish, but I guess it's like, how do I serve my 7-year-old self, right? How do I serve that young man who couldn't see beyond the realm of possibility, who couldn't hope? And so I run into kids now, and they tell me what they want to do, and then you ask them if they could do it, and they just straight up tell you no, and it's just like, dang, that hurts you in your heart. And so like, how do you change that no to a yes? Hopefully I answered your question.
No, you did, yeah, definitely. And I think through your career, there's a part of your career, I think, that's a highlight. Everyone familiar with Derek Jeter? Yes? So during his final year, there was a game where he was going for a certain number of RBIs, I think it was.
It was just his last at bat at Yankee Stadium.
His last at bat. So it's almost like Kobe's last home game in LA, where he scored however many points. Who cares, right? Nobody cares, right? Nobody cares.
It wasn't LeBron, so it doesn't matter, right?
Nobody cares. We care now, though. We care now. Go LA. Go LA. But Derek Jeter came up to bat, and it would have been his last bat in Yankee Stadium. He was at the plate. He hit I'll let you talk about it, because Antoan was you guys won the game, right? Off his hit.
Yeah. And
I'll let you tell it.
So I guess you want me to talk about this moment. So playing in New York was like a different animal. I know some people there from New York, and yeah, there you go. And the lights actually are a little brighter in New York for some reason. You feel like you're just on Broadway like every single night, man. So I don't even know how Derek did it every day there, but it was just a crazy day in general, because we didn't think we were going to play, because it was raining the whole day, and my family was in town. I told them, y'all might as well go home, because we're not going to play. We're about to fly to Boston, so don't even worry about it. Literally, so we hanging in the clubhouse, and about like an hour before the game, like literally the skies just cleared up, and we just like, what? And everyone's just like, go figure, right? It's Jeter's last game. That's just the way his life is, storybook, right? So now, so we all get to the dugout early, because they're trying to celebrate him last home game, and they have this whole they have this tribute on the video board for him, and everyone's in the dugout like looking at it, and everybody's interested, and you can see he's getting teary-eyed. Guys in the dugout getting emotional. And so the game starts. His first at bat, he hits like a double, and everybody's like, "Oh, here we go! This is what he does." So we're winning the game, and we're up by 3 runs, and we get to the 9th inning, and I'm just taking this whole thing in, because I'm just enjoying it. Like, I'm a fan right now. I'm not even a player. I'm just like looking and just like whoop-de-woo, And we get to the 9th inning, and we're playing the Orioles, and the Orioles like tie the game up. They hit like a home run, and then they tie the game, and everybody they had a celebration set up for him, and they had to like kind of literally, it was like down, like we walked down the concourse, and they had everything set up. They had like rush it out and push it like on the side, because like, oh dang, we might not win this game, right? And yeah, And so anyway, long story short, they tie the game. We come up in the bottom half, and I know I got to get ready because I might have an opportunity to get in this game and help us win the game. And sure enough, Joe Girardi, who's our manager at the time, he's like, hey, Antoan, you're going in. So I get in the game, and I remember getting the second base, and now Derek Jeter's coming up. And I remember getting the second base, and I'm standing on second base, and I'm just like in awe, acting like this is probably my first game ever. I'm looking around, and like the crowd's just chanting like very loud, and you just like it. I was like, I had to like literally say, hey, hold on, you're playing the game, get back, focus, refocus. I literally felt like I was like 7 years old. And and so Derek, first pitch, he hits it, he does whatever he does, and he hits the ball, and I end up scoring. And
No, he's being modest. He hit the ball, and Antoan was on second base, and if he skis the what's the term now when you win no, it's the leading. Jesus, I'm drawing a blank. But he's the person that if they score, they win the game. That's what I'm trying to say. Deciding run. So Derek hits the ball. I think it went to the outfield somewhere. So Antoan had to really use his jets to make it home. Ran home, slid at the base, scored, and the Yankees won the game. So it's almost like Antoan's last year in the league is tied to one of the greatest players to ever play the game. And I think that's commendable. I think, we celebrate Derek Jeter and his entire career, but we have to celebrate the guy that helped and assisted that final moment. And he's here with us today. So I just wanted, you to talk about that because a lot of people, they don't really know or care about who scores. But
I appreciate that,
I think that's a big deal.
Thanks.
Being that it was a Bahamian, number one, and this guy is on our stage, number two. I think those are things that we need to celebrate.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure, man. So I'll open the floor for any questions for Antoan. Anyone, just feel free. As she comes, so I just want you to just kind of talk about what your goals are moving forward. Like, I know you have this Project Limestone, this initiative that you started. What's your goals for that?
So I'm probably going to say something here that not going to make much sense, right? And nobody, don't kill me for this, but like, I don't like the word goals, right? People think I'm crazy, and even my team is like, what you talking about? So I like to think of it as like a mission, and so when I think of it, like I want to serve the youth, and I want to make sure that, like I say, we want to make sure that they realize that what their dreams are, and inspire them to hope, and then create this boldness in them to kind of chase it. And I guess when I think of goals and I think of missions, I think of a goal is something that, I want to be a doctor, right? And so many things get in the way of that. But a mission is, I want to help people heal, and you could do that every single day. You don't have to worry about someone stamping a piece of paper to saying that you're qualified, you got a PhD. And so my mission is to help people understand that they could achieve and they could be whatever they set their kind of mind out to be. Yeah.
That's good. So we no longer have goals, ladies and gentlemen. We have a mission in life.
Well, you actually kind of hit on my question. I wanted to commend you, first of all, for making an investment in the future of youth, because that's really why we're here, and appreciate that. And so my question is, because of the relevancy of that, what are some of your tactics on how you do that? Because I think all of us would be in support of what your mission looks like, and when we all go home, that's very relevant for us. So if you can shed some light on what that looks like and how you're doing that, how you're achieving it, since that's what your dedication is at this point, that'd be great.
So yeah, we kind of like in our infancy stage, but what it looks like is, I guess we look at it in three simple steps, I guess. What we want to do is we want to build character. And so we've set out a curriculum to how to build up young individuals. And then after we're able to do that, then we want to teach them a technical skill, whether it's in baseball, academics, whatever sport. And then we give them the platform to kind of showcase their talent. And whether that's locally or whether that's traveling somewhere, creating cultural experiences for them to kind of learn and appreciate other cultures, and just creating a holistic person as much as we can. And I think the best thing that we try to drive home with them is that, like, the answer is there are no answers, right? And so we just want them to kind of be curious learners. We want them to think, and we want them to just be innovative and creative and kind of create their own path. And just, we don't want to get in the way more than anything else.
That's good. Jess?
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello? Oh, there we go. Thanks so much for sharing your story. What's behind the name Project Limestone? What does it mean?
Great question. I'm glad you asked. I like telling the story, actually. So I'm a firm believer, like, I love building relationships and connecting. I think we're all connected, right? I think that we're all connected. And so Project Limestone, I was sitting down talking to my cousin one day. We were sitting down trying to think about the name of this thing. And we wanted to kind of like, we wanted it to be something that was worldly, but at the same time unique to the Bahamas. And so the Bahamas is made up of maybe like 90% limestone, right? And so that's why we kind of thought about using limestone as the name. But then when we kind of dug a little deeper into it and started to think about what limestone represented, it was like a no-brainer for us, right? So limestone is a very porous material, and so by itself, like, it'll wither away to nothing. Like, it's susceptible to like water, wind, by itself. However, if it's cultivated correctly, it'll build structures that stand the test of time. So we have these forts in the Bahamas, and they've been there since like the 1700s, and they made out of limestone. And so the thought about it is that we're stronger together, and also, like, limestone is, like, we probably call it like pot cake in the Bahamas, but like limestone is like made up of a bunch of different materials as well. So there is strength in diversity. And so the concept behind it, and our like slogan or logo is individually strong, unitedly unbreakable. And so, so we talk about, thank you. So, and we talk about it all the time, like, we want people to jump on the bandwagon, right? So even if you ain't on the bandwagon now, we want you to jump on it, because we know that we can't do this mission by ourselves. And so, but we'll get it started, and we'll get pushed in the right direction, and when people get on. But it's really important to, like, how do we connect everybody? How do we connect to get this thing happening?
Joe?
All right, so I have a two-parter. The first one is, I know you don't love baseball, but I like baseball a pretty good bit. And you were talking about how nobody remembers, that you were on second base, that you scored the game-winning run. Kind of transpose that to life, and how everybody focuses on the major stats, the home runs, the RBIs, the batting average, but what did you have to do behind the scenes, and what did you have to do that doesn't necessarily get recorded to help you fuel Derek's final moment as a Yankee playing the game? And then the second one is with your mentorship now. Can you see a change from when you were growing up and how you wanted to be a policeman? Do you see the kids that you're mentoring now, can you tell they have bigger dreams?
Okay. So I don't have a good memory, so you might have to come back and give me them all over again. But to your first question, it's hard work, right? It's getting to the field before everybody. It's making sure that you're prepared. But more importantly, I think it's being able to do your job, understanding the role that you play. And so, I don't know if it's important necessarily to be the guy. I know it's not important. It's just important for you to do your part. And someone's going to shine. But I think understanding that we all play a role in the success of this, and that's what a team is. A team is everybody kind of collectively kind of getting together to be able to accomplish something. And so it's okay, like, I don't need to be remembered, you know what I mean? But that's not going to take away from those memories that we've created in that group. It's not going to take away from that moment. And so Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And
So,
the second one was the kids today who you work
Yeah.
with. Are they dreaming bigger than you would have at their age?
I don't think so. You know, to be honest, like they not necessarily dreaming bigger, and you would think so because I think I was talking to someone the other day. They were saying like you think with the internet and stuff like that, like they would, but they aren't because the reality. I mean, I shouldn't say the reality, but they aren't. They still children are still they hurting, right? And they still, you know, don't have that guidance and someone to kind of push them in that direction. And so I don't necessarily know if they're dreaming any bigger. I guess I just know that they still need to dream more, I guess.
I guess what help do you need? You know, with your mission, your new mission now with Project Limestone. What are the things that you need in your organization, whether it be personnel or other resources? You know, what's prevalent for you right now?
Well, I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest, right?
Just winging it, man.
So personally, just continue to learn, continue to grow, and I think just you need people who are committed, people who are committed to serving the mission. So like, I get people that are interested in it because of Antoan, and I always say like, well, what happens when you get mad at me, right? You know, I'm gonna show up, right? But it's people who are committed to the mission and who wanna serve the mission, because I think ultimately that's what it's about, and hopefully, you know, well, we could check our egos at the door, and it's not gonna be about like it's not even about like necessarily Project Limestone, right? It's just about like, are we accomplishing this goal? You know, like, who cares if Project Limestone gets the recognition or not? We just want to make sure that Charo Jr., you know, is able to dream and get to where he needs to be. So, yeah.
Myles Jr.
Charo Jr. So, yeah, it would be Charo Jr. All right, so my question?
Moving right along.
So,
Stuck just now.
so one question for you, and it's kind of a two-part piece. So,
I only could do one at a time, but
it's a simple. It isn't. It won't be that long. But when you think about when you made the statement of, "Hey, I don't really love baseball per se," but it took me a second, and I kind of reflect and said, "Well, that kind of makes sense. It was a job for you, and you were good at it, and you excelled. And we all tried. We want to do the same thing, right? So in most cases, we all don't love what we have to do to make." Ends meet, etc. But we want to be the best, and we want to be extremely successful, even if we are, not in love with what we do day in, day out. With that, how do you manage stress as you continue to accelerate to higher levels and you're much more visibility and everyone can see every mistake that's made? In your case, you're on broadcasting on television. In my case, or whoever's case is, you see reports and everybody has visibility to what you did or what you didn't do. So stress management. And then lastly, personal disciplines like work ethic, and how does that play a role in kind of managing all those different components as you continue to accelerate?
it's a great question. Didn't expect anything less from you. So I think the work ethic, well, I'll answer the work ethic part of it first. I think that's, a part of it is, that's just created from, and I go back to my grandmother, right? So that's created from her and just constantly talking about what it takes to succeed. So I didn't know any better, so she just telling me to work hard. So that's kind of where I work hard. But I think this to answer your first part would kind of help with the second part. How do you manage the stress? What I've realized and in being in those clubhouses, and when the great players, for some reason they seem to have better life skills, so to speak, than the ones who are okay. So they have like these intangibles, right? So they are disciplined, they're responsible, they work hard. So they're just a little bit more than talented. Like if I had any talent, I would have been really good, right? But I didn't have any talent. But what I did have, like, was the ability to have some discipline and be responsible. And I think, but how you deal with that stress is understanding what influences your actions, right? And I think So I look at it as like 5 things, right? So hang with me for a second. So you have your identity, your perspective, you got your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And so your identity kind of, drives your perspective. And then your perspective, and then those things kind of drive your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions. And I think when your identity is placed in something other than your performance and your work, right? And then you have a very good perspective on life. It just allows you to manage that stress that you call it. Because, when I went 0 for 4 and I struck out 4 times and it was on national television, and I want to feel sorry for myself, I just kind of think about, what else is kind of going on in the world, right? And so I guess being able to keep baseball in perspective, and then when, you have the opportunities to maybe go visit the hospital and children's hospital, and you talk to a 5-year-old that's battling leukemia, and you go 0 for 4, and then you want to throw a tantrum, and you realize, hold on, man, what you really doing, So for me, I just think it was perspective that helped with the stress for me personally, and understanding that who I wasn't tied to what I did. Who I was not. I'm not Antoan the baseball player. You know what I mean? I'm Antoan the person. So I just never really kind of tied my identity to the game.
Awesome. Any more questions? Sure.
I was wondering, were you able to be in a place to be influential to your players, to the coach, or were they able to be influential to you?
What's the last part?
Were they able to be influential to you at all?
My coaches and the players? Yeah, I think it was a mutual kind of benefit, and I think it's always an opportunity to learn, and so once again, I think just trying to find those nuggets, and some people you learn more from some than others, and I think just identifying those little nuggets where you can learn from, and then when you're playing on a team with a bunch of superstars, for the most part, and a lot of these guys have egos. They're not necessarily interested in listening to you unless you played a certain amount of years and stuff like that. But I do think that no matter who you are, where you are, you have an opportunity to influence and to impact. And it might not be by your words, but it could be by your actions. And I think when you're able to be your authentic self, that's going to show and that's going to come up in some way, somehow. So I hope I had the ability to influence.
Cool. I think we have one more. Mm-hmm.
Like Mr. Munroe shared yesterday, purpose equals value equals passion. You said that baseball at the time was not your passion. It wasn't a sport that you enjoyed. Why did you feel so compelled to master the sport, from assistant scorekeeper to cheerleader, and then eventually playing in the game? At which point did you identify it as your purpose, understood your value, and in the end, did you become passionate about the sport?
Oh boy,
It's a good question.
yeah, but I don't know if I can remember all that. But I think so I'm gonna just kind of, maybe I'll tell you a story, and I'll probably help with all of this. And if I miss part of it, just kind of hit me back to it. Okay, so I was pretty good. I was pretty good at track and field, and I was pretty good at football. And so for track and field, and I was telling Myles this the other day, for track and field, I was lazy, I guess, because it was a lot of work in track and field. The training for track and field was just a lot, and I was like, I didn't want to do that, and so that kind of steered me away from that a little bit. Football, my mom was just like, I'm not coming to watch you. You're too tiny. You can get hurt. We ain't got no time for that, right? And so baseball was the compromise. Baseball was the compromise. And honestly, I was not very good at baseball, but I loved to compete. So even in what's your friend's in the back? We just asked the question over there. Ralph. So even Ralph was saying that talking about not loving it. So yeah, I didn't love the necessary sport, but I loved to compete. So it was nothing more thrilling than sitting in the batter's box trying to hit a pitch, because of that competition part of it. And so I guess that was me finding that purpose, right? I can't remember the other parts, but the story I have for you is that So on this journey to the major league, so in 2011 was when I first actually got to the major leagues with the Atlanta Braves. And on that journey, so me getting cut from the softball team in the 7th grade was the first time someone telling me I wasn't good enough in terms of sport, but it wasn't the last time. So in 2009, 2009 happened again. I was actually with the San Francisco Giants, and they were like, "Hey, we don't want you no more. You're not good enough." And so I got released. I got released from the San Francisco Giants, and then I ended up catching on with the Atlanta Braves. And actually, even with the Atlanta Braves, when I went with them, I started the season with them in March. At the end of March, they were like, "Hey, you're not good enough," and Atlanta Braves let me go. And so, there was these two separate occasions that I got let go. About 6 weeks later, after Atlanta let me go, they called me back and they're like, "Hey," they're telling me the sad story about like why they let me go. I was like, "Listen, man, I just want to play, so I don't really. You're gonna tell me all that? Let's go. We can either sign this contract or not." But the interesting part about this, and this, I guess, this is when I kind of, I don't even say at the time I didn't know it was my purpose, but looking back and reflecting, I could say like, well, maybe this was it. I do know that it wasn't an accident that this happened. So when I got released from Atlanta in March of 2010, I went to play in this independent league, and basically, to make it simple, it's like semi-professional league, right? So I go there, and I remember sitting on the field, and we were practicing, and we had like everybody had different types of pants on and different shirts, and I'm sitting there thinking like, damn, we look like a softball team. Like, what am I doing, right? And one of the players there, his name is Kelly Hunt. I'll never forget him. He's standing next to me. He's like, "Man, Antoan," he's like, "we as baseball players, all we do is complain." And so as soon as he said, I was trying to get defensive, and I'm trying to figure out like, well, I don't complain, But before I could even say anything, he's like, no, Antoan, I'm not saying like, you complain, but he's just like, we complain, It's either too hot, it's either too cold, the food ain't good enough. He's like, we can make noise about something. And I was sitting there, I was thinking about that, I was like, dang, he right, Because I was just complaining about how we look. And so I go back into the locker room, or I think it was the next day, I walk into the locker room, and in the movies, I don't know, the best way to think in a movie where you could kind of hear all the voices that going around the room. So that's what happened to me. I walked in, I could just hear everything really clear in the room, and I heard one guy, he had his foot in an ice bucket, and he's like, "Oh, it's so cold." And I'm thinking to myself, like, what do you expect? You got your foot in the ice bucket. Then somebody's complaining about the food they were serving us, and literally I just going around the room and everybody's complaining. I was like, oh, dang, this dude was right. All we do is complain. And in that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm not complaining anymore, right? Obviously, I complained again, but it gave me a different perspective. It took me to a place of enjoying the game like I was 10 years old again. And I remember we had a game that night. It was raining, and everybody was complaining. And for some odd reason, I decided I'm going to run up and down as if it was 70 degrees and sunny, and had a really good time. And a couple of days later, that's when the Atlanta Braves had called me, and they were like, "Hey, Antoan, we want you to come back out." And so anyway, on the same day, I decided to go to the field. I packed up my bags, and I asked the manager, say, "Can I hang around for the game?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, no worries." So I hang around for the game, brought a little energy to the dugout. After the game, I went to the locker room. I'm picking up my bags. As I'm leaving, Kelly Hunt, he's leaving as well. And he said to me, he's like, "Yeah, Antoan, they just let me go. I'm done." And so Kelly Hunt they released him. So the same day that I was going back to Atlanta, Kelly Hunt, who had taught me this lesson, was finishing his career. And he said to me, he said, "Antoan, you know what, man? Like, because he was Christian, a man of faith." And he said to me, he said, "Antoan, you know the crazy part about it?" He said, I prayed this morning before I came to the field, and I said, "Man, God, you got to give me an answer because my knee is just killing me, And he said, I came to the field, I felt really, really good." And he's like, "This is the first time I felt this good in a long time." And then he was like, and he had a good game that day. He had like 2 hits, 2 doubles, but he was content. He was content when he got let go. And so in that point in time when I was leaving, I didn't take it for granted, and I realized that I needed to meet Kelly Hunt because Kelly Hunt changed my take on like what this game should represent. And I went on to 18 months later, get into the big leagues with the Braves, but I had to learn that lesson before I could get up. And so I think at that point in time, and that story is kind of, when I look back, it was like, this was the purpose.
Awesome. Well, Antoan, I want to thank you for sharing your story with us and being honest, man. I mean, being really transparent about the struggles of a player. Not even, I think what I take away from your story is you not even liking the game, but you understanding that there was an opportunity for you and you're taking full advantage of it. So thank you, man. Thank you for joining us today, this week, these past 2 days, and for allowing us to take a little peek into your life, man. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so nervous right now.
Good job, man. Thanks.
I was shaking.